The rope slid through my fingers as I wrapped the sub's wrists behind her. Cross, loop, check tension. Her breathing had already shifted. Slower, deeper, sinking into the headspace I'd guided her to dozens of times before. Too tight? I asked.
No, sir.
I secured the binding while Colin set everything we'd need within reach. Imelda's red hair fell forward as she knelt, patient and trusting. I took 3 steps away. Apply the harness, using a diamond pattern. He picked up the longer rope, got behind his wife, and began wrapping her torso. The crimson contrasted sharply with her pale skin as he worked, creating the frame that would distribute pressure evenly. But my mind conjured olive skin instead. Dark, wavy hair, not red. Tighter on the 3rd wrap, I said, willing myself to remain in the scene. Colin locked the harness into place with flawless execution. Now, the spreader bar. He knelt to lock the cuffs around Imelda's ankles, forcing her thighs apart. The position put her on display, vulnerable, exposed, and trembling as her arousal became visible. Everything was as it should be. So why did I feel so disconnected?
Oliver's head rested on my shoulder as the Range Rover wound through the Scottish Highlands. His breathing had steadied out 20 minutes ago in a way it had not been during the first week after the attack. My hand stayed on his wrist, monitoring his pulse out of habit. 2 weeks of sitting by his bedside had made me hypervigilant. I registered every change in his respiration and every shift in his colour. The head injury he'd sustained in the attack had nearly killed him. The worst was behind us now, but the memory of those terrifying first days lingered. He'd survived. He was here. That should have been enough. The doctors had insisted he have around-the-clock care, then returned to Glasgow for clearance to resume normal activities. While the timeline should have relieved me, that I was headed to a place where I'd be responsible for making sure Oliver's recovery progressed as it should, filled me with trepidation. I'd spent 6 months fighting my attraction to him, pretending I didn't want him. How could I continue to do so with renewed forced proximity? Then again, wouldn't it be harder when he was cleared for work and we returned to Vauxhall Cross? Who knew how often I'd see him then? I glanced at Archon as he drove. His dark hair was shorter than during the Labyrinth investigation, close-cropped in a way that emphasized the strong column of his neck. His posture had changed too. His shoulders were set and his jaw firm.
On day 3, I woke feeling more like myself than I had since before the attack. The headaches had faded from a constant assault to a dull presence lurking at the edges of my skull, but my body ached with the restlessness of a man who'd spent far too long lying down. I'd had too many days of forced rest ahead of me, in a castle that felt increasingly like a pressure cooker. Ophelia and I sharing a suite, our host being a mystery I couldn't stop picking at, and my own body betraying me. Now I needed air, needed to breathe something that didn't smell of old stone and the lingering medicinal tang that clung to everything I touched. Except Ophelia had other ideas about my morning. "Not until I check your vitals," she said when I mentioned wanting to take a walk. She was already reaching for the medical kit she'd appropriated with the blessing of the hospital staff. I sat on the edge of my bed and let her take my wrist in her hands to register my pulse rate. I watched her as she counted the beats silently. Her dark hair was pulled away from her features that managed to be both delicate and fierce. A small furrow appeared between her brows as she concentrated. I'd wanted her for as long as I could remember. The desirous ache had become as familiar as breathing. I'd told myself my reluctance to act was because MI6 frowned upon officers complicating matters with personal entanglements, but the truth was simpler and more pathetic. I was terrified she'd reject me.